Interesting stuff from Willian talking about his future at Chelsea to Fox Sports Brazil. Everyone knows my contract is up in a few months and it looks like it'll be very difficult to secure an extension. I think it's unlikely that I'll renew. Well, Jules and Craig are back with us. Jules, Coutinho seems to be the man that many are saying will come in and replace the Brazilian.
Yeah, I don't really believe this one. I haven't been told if it was true or not yet, but just Coutinho doesn't really strike me as the kind of player that Frank Lampard would like in his team. For Coutinho to work somewhere, the team has to be built around him. And I don't think it would be the case at all at Chelsea. And if you think that Hakim Ziyech is coming as well, it would be there for next season, that you still have players like Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi, obviously Tammy Abraham, even Mason Mount can play wide and has played wide at times this season. Plus a very strong midfield three where you could maybe even expect Chelsea to go and buy players in the summer. I don't think there's room for Coutinho then. And also Coutinho would be very expensive in terms of wages, in terms of transfer fees as well. And for me, he's not a replacement at all for Willian, who, by the way, I think is the right thing to do to let him go, and Pedro as well.
Craig?
Yeah, he's clearly not a direct replacement because those guys are pretty much wide guys. Coutinho being a playmaker, you've got Mason Mount who was given that role quite a lot last season, a player that Frank Lampard trusts, a young man that was given his head. Julian's mentioned all the other players that are available for the wide positions. I do think that the likelihood is that the two senior players probably will go. And also Coutinho needs to find, I think, a home for the next 3 or 4 years. But I'm just not sure, and I agree with Jules, I'm not quite sure he fits into that mould. Lampard likes his players his playmakers to be hard-working as well, and, closing people down and playing the pressing game. And, he's not quite in that mould, and he's had a tough time. The money's going to be big as well. And don't forget, there's going to be a budget cap for Lampard like every other manager at Chelsea in the Premier League. Abramovich has shown less of an appetite to spend huge money these days. And their most important position out there is not a playmaker, it's a centre forward. And we know when you're after a top-notch centre forward to get you over the line, that's big bucks. It's big bucks in terms of transfer fee, and it's big bucks in terms of wages. So even if we did want Philippe Coutinho to come in because he's a very good player, I think finances might dictate it.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's quite something, isn't it? When you take a look at his transfer history, let's not forget, back in 2018, January transfer window, Barcelona paid 145 million euros for the Brazilian. Now we're questioning whether or not he could start in a Chelsea team. Ali, I want to start with you. Does this transfer make any sense to you?
Let me first address the quick math. You just said 145 million euros for his transfer, and now the reported number for him to go to Chelsea would be around 80 million euros. That means that Barcelona, a team who we talked about last week in being some sort of financial woe situation, they're willing to take a 65 million euro loss on a player. They'd rather lose 65 million euros than have this player walk in the door of that locker room again and be useful for Barcelona. That tells you a lot what they think about the player and what Coutinho has become. Now, we spin it forward to Chelsea and see what that means for Chelsea. It doesn't quite match what Chelsea's been trying to do. We've been sold on the idea that Chelsea's going to go with a youth movement. And so it's Christian Pulisic and Callum Hudson-Odoi. And those are the guys who are going to be playing on the outside. And you just bring in Hakim Ziyech as well. And so he would be an answer too. So where is the place for Coutinho to play? A guy that likes to play on the outside, drifting inside, well, it's something similar as to the three guys that I just mentioned would be doing. And so I don't see the space for him. I don't see the place for him. And I certainly would not be paying that amount of money for a player who clearly has had a difficult time making his mark, whether that was at Barcelona or Bayern Munich. And again, I repeat, Barcelona is willing to take a major loss on a player because they simply do not want him anywhere around the club.
Frank Leboeuf, would you like to see Coutinho at your old club?
Well, to be really honest and frank, no. And we already talked about him. I think Coutinho is a good player. And then I'm not even trying to be harsh on him. I think I want to find Barcelona guilty for the situation because they put a price, 145 million on Coutinho, who I think doesn't belong to that league. So now it's hard to reverse the system. It's hard to think that you can even the price, but lose and accept to lose like 65 million euros for a transfer. But if you check on the quality of Coutinho, of course he's a talented player, of course he's a good player, but does he belong to the top player? Allow me to have some doubts about that. When I see Neymar, when I see Ronaldo, when I see Messi, when I see Mbappe, I see top players, and Coutinho has the price of a top player, and I don't want to make a statement, but I'm not sure he has the quality of a top player. And now, how do you reverse the system? And Adali said, how do you put Coutinho in a team, and how do you rate him now? So now you talk about Chelsea, ready to put 80 million euros. 80 million euros, I think is too much for a player where you're not sure he's going to find the level he used to be at Liverpool. It is not anymore. But at the same time, having three players like named Ali, we can be as good as Coutinho without costing that amount of money. So it's why I think Coutinho shouldn't go to Chelsea, because there is no room for him, and I think it's too much spent for a player where we don't know, in fact, the standard.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.